Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Marvin Byrd Show, and I'm your host, Marvin Byrd. Here, we believe that teachers are leaders, and as a result, we strive to give you all of the information, equip you with skills that you need in order to lead your students to success. Now, to start the show, I want to share something with you. This right here. This is my first ID card from my first teaching job back in 2006. I started in Joplin, Missouri, Joplin High School. I was a Joplin Eagle, and so I was looking at this. I've got a big smile on my face because yes, I finally made it, my first teaching job. So I want to ask you to share a picture with me of your first ID card during from your first year of teaching. So you can share that with me. Tweet me at Marvin Byrd. Let me see what your picture looks like on your first ID card for your first teaching job. So this is special. I found this as I was doing some cleaning and we were snowed in, and so I found that, and so I thought that was pretty cool and I wanted to share that with you. So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some tools in order to deal with that student who lacks the motivation, because that's a big challenge that a lot of teachers face, how to motivate the unmotivated student. And today we're going to look at it, or we're going to look at it a little bit differently, because what we do here is we look at it from the standpoint of leadership. So the question is, how do I lead the unmotivated student? So that's what we're going to do. And what we do as well is we look at anything and everything in order to see what we can learn in terms of leadership. That's how we're different. So today, this episode is going to revolve around a quote by Jack Welch, is a former CEO of GE, and his thing was this: inspire followers, not workers. Inspire followers, not workers. Inspire followers, not workers. Inspire followers, not workers. Now, think about this before we break that quote down. Think about your on social media, the blue check mark. The people who have the blue check mark. What does it mean to have the blue check mark? Well, it means a lot, because if they say something, it happens. If they say, hey, go buy this product or boycott this product, or if they say contact your local representative, anything, any seemingly anything that they say, they have what's called influence. And the great John Maxwell teaches us that leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. And when these individuals with the blue check mark, when they speak to their followers, they've got great influence over what those followers decide to do once those words are spoken, or once those that tweet goes out, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it may be. They have influence over their followers. And Jack Welch, he teaches us to inspire followers, not workers. Now, simply put, what he means by that is just, number one, establish that relationship with the people who work for you. Care for them genuinely. Be empathetic towards them. And when you care for them, they're going to want to make you proud. They're going to want to do a great job. And yes, Mr. Jack Welch, he worked in the business world, but definitely there's something that we can take from that as leaders in the classroom, because everything is so much better when we talk about the classroom if it is student driven. Success, it's so much better and it's easier when it's the student making that decision, because in order to achieve success for a student, in order for a student to achieve success in the classroom, there are so many great decisions they're going to have to make in order to get to that spot. Now imagine you as a teacher your job is along the way is to kind of, sometimes you got to push that student, make this decision. No, don't do that, do this. And so there's a lot of effort that you have to put forth in order to get that student to where they need to be. But it's so much better if you're able to exert your influence and they do it on their own. It reminds me of when I was younger, and one of my big things was stealing. That's what I did. I had a problem with it. Well, actually, yeah, it was a problem, but I was very good at it. But I'm not proud of that. I shouldn't have done that, but I was very good at it. And I never got caught, but I made the mistake of I always have, ever since I was younger, I always had a big heart, and so I stole some gifts for my family. And I gave these gifts to my family, and you know they they said that they were, "Hey, oh, thank you son," but in their minds they were wondering, okay, how did my 12-year-old son get the money to buy these things? So long story short, I when they confronted me on where I got the money, I had to tell a lie because I had to get myself out of it. So I told them I had a job, and they knew I didn't have a job. And so they said, "Okay, son, show us where you're working. We'll meet you there after school." And so I was like, "Okay, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." So I took them to one store. Then I took them. Oh, no, no, that's not the store I work. I work at this store over here. So it was just a big mess. Big mess. So my parents told me stop stealing. I said, "Okay, mom, dad, I got you." So I got punished, told to stop stealing. Did I stop stealing? No, I didn't stop stealing because I was very good at it. But I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. So I didn't stop stealing until I decided that, hey, I don't want to be known as this bad kid who's going into these stores and stealing. And so I stopped stealing. I didn't have to go through any kind of program, or I didn't have to do any behavior modification. Like, I stopped stealing because I wanted to stop stealing. And success is so much better that way. And as a leader in the classroom, your goal is to try to find whatever you can in order to get that student that's having trouble making bad decisions, is to try to get them to make good decisions so that they can eventually reach proficiency. That's what it's all about. And a lot of this, what we're talking about today, is rooted in love and logic. And I'll never forget when I decided to go all in to love and logic. And I told my students, I said this: "Hey guys, you can do whatever you want to do in this classroom as long as it doesn't cause a problem." And when I said that to them, their mind was blown. But what I was doing was I was leaning into the fact that students, they make their own decisions anyways. So I was wanting them to really think about it before they made a decision. And so I would throw out things like, "Hey, I'll tell you what, during that last test, the people who decided to do that optional assignment, they scored better than those students who didn't. Just saying, that's something that you might want to think about when the next test comes around." So what can we take away from this quote? Inspire followers, not workers. Inspire followers, not workers. We can take a lot. We can take a lot. We can learn from the business world, because there's many great leaders who teach us lessons that we need to know, that perhaps hold the key to getting that one student where he or she needs to be. And they deserve to have a teacher who never ever stops experimenting. So I'm going to first thing we're going to do is we're going to break down that quote, "Inspire followers, not workers," and what it means to have that mindset of a follower in the classroom and then a worker. And then I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to inspire followers, not workers, in your classroom. Before we get started, I want to share this with you. Here we go. MarvinByrd.com, MarvinByrd.com, MarvinByrd.com. This is where you can go if you desire, if you love the message that we're preaching here, that we're spreading here, and that you want to be a part of it. Here's how you can do it. Go to MarvinByrd.com, and then you will see support the message. Click the support the message tab. You're going to see an Amazon link. This Amazon link will take you to Amazon. For those of you who shop at Amazon, which is many of you, you click this link whenever you shop at Amazon, and it'll take you to the site. You'll have all rights and privileges to everything that they sell on Amazon, which is every product in the world. And whenever you use this link, we get a little commission, and that helps us continue to spread the message. So to those of you who are doing that, I greatly appreciate it. And to those of you who are considering it, thinking about it, I appreciate you as well. So please consider doing that. Next up, another way you can support us and help us spread the message is to check out these Rodan and Fields products, these nice skincare products. I use the Unblemished regimen myself each and every day, multi-step regimen to keep your face clear. If you're interested in lash boost, that is my alarm, which I'll turn off. If you're interested in lash boost, to make your lashes, as you see there on the picture, a little bit longer and thicker, you can do that. Anti-aging. And then we also have a regimen specifically for teenagers to clear up skin from acne. So you can check out those products, or you can use this form right here to contact the consultant, and she will walk you through that, help you figure out what's best for you. And then last but not least, here you see a donate button. So if you just want to give a gift, if you feel compelled to do that, you can do that. Absolutely. So I appreciate you. So I appreciate your consideration. Appreciate those of you who are already supporting us and our message. Thank you so much in those one of three ways. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right, now back to this. So inspire followers, not workers. Inspire followers, not workers. How do we do that in the classroom? What does that look like? Okay, so obviously workers, he says, inspire followers, not workers. So what is that worker? What does that mentality look like in the classroom? Well, it looks like a worker, it looks like a this for that. It looks like students solely focused on a grade. So, and you've seen this before, towards the end of the grading period, you'll get that question from students. What do I have to do to bring my grade up? That's a this for that mentality. And with that, there's no, I often say this, education is about changing the way students think. But with that worker mentality, there's no transformation. It's just a this for that. It's a transaction. And you know, when I was in college, I first started out as a computer science major. That was my major. That was a big mistake. So my first coding class, I basically leaned on this other student to, put all my programs together. And so I didn't learn the coding language, and I got a good grade out of the class, but it didn't change the way that I thought. Okay. And so come the next semester, and it's the next class, and I go to the other student and say, hey, I need you to do my work for me. And he said, I don't think so. I got my own work to do. So I had to figure it out myself, and it was a complete failure. And that's when I realized that I'm in really, really big trouble. And so I doubled down on my mistake, and I ended up getting kicked out of college because my GPA was so bad, because I was just flailing around, because I had that this for that mentality. So the this for that mentality, it's about a transaction, not transformation. This for that mentality, it's about transaction, not transformation. And by transformation, we're talking about the way that you think, those aha moments, the ability to manipulate information that you've gained and just really bookmark it and then compare, contrast to new information that you've acquired. When, this for that mentality, you can't do that because you're solely focused on the grade. You're solely focused on just getting this work in. Let me turn this in. Let me turn this in. How many of you out there have had that moment that where you just been annoyed where a student will turn in something that's weeks late, weeks late. They'll turn it in and then maybe the next day, hey, did you grade that assignment that I turned in? I don't know what's going on because I know that you don't have a life. So I need you to grade my paper. You need to get on that because that's what I'm waiting for to get my grade up. You need to grade my paper. How many of you have been there? Isn't that frustrating? That's the this for that mentality. And that's that transaction mindset. I turned it in, give me my grade. That's the way it works. But here's the thing. The transaction mindset, it always fails because there's no infrastructure to support the expectations. The transaction mindset, that it always fails because there's no infrastructure to support those expectations. And it looks like this. Students are frustrated because, hey, I turned in all these assignments, but my overall grade it mirrors the tests, which I bombed because when I was doing those assignments, I was just doing them to get the points, not to change the way that I think. I wasn't going for transformation. I was going for transaction. Let me get these points. The transaction mindset, it always fails because there's no infrastructure to support the expectations. You see, the student was expecting a really, 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 really good grade, but there's nothing, there's no information in there. There's no ability to show proficiency because there's no transformation. So when it comes test time, it just doesn't work. So that's not the kind of mentality you want your students to have. Jack Welch said, inspire followers, not workers. There's something special when we talk about a follower, something special when we talk about a follower, because it's in the classroom. It looks like the student is making the decision and the teacher is leaning into the fact that the student has the ability to make the decision. It's really what I told my students when I leaned into love and logic. You can do whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't cause a problem, because ultimately the outcome is going to be based on the decisions that you make. And I hope you make a good one. So here's what it looks like in a classroom where we're inspiring followers, not leaders. You as a teacher, as a leader, you're painting this wonderful masterpiece for all the students to see, this picture of what the future looks like, a vision of success for every one of your students. And you're explaining to them that, hey, our time in this classroom is just a moment. It's just a moment on your way to your wonderful vision of success. And the time we spend in here, the things we do, could be the content, could be the way that you acquire the content. All of that is going to help you progress along the way as you journey to whatever your vision of success is. And it's my pleasure as your teacher to be your guide, to show you the way as you follow me. Now, I might not be able to go with you, but I'll always be with you in spirit because of the things that the time that we spent together, the things that you learned from me. That's the kind of spirit that's in a classroom where the leader is working to inspire followers, not workers. Because followers, that's about a decision that the student makes. And that speaks to the fact that it is the collective influence of teachers that really make us all who we are today. A number of our teachers, they had an influence on us. They touched us. They affected us. They inspired us. And man, that's just such a blessing to really think about. And what we're talking about today is we're talking about really leaning into that, because it is possible to help a student get closer to that point where they're making good decisions. Now, I know it may seem like, oh my gosh, not that one student, he or she is far away from that, but it's possible to get them just a little bit closer. You can do it. It is possible. So this makes me think of one of my favorite teacher movies, Mr. Holland's Opus. Now, I love that movie except for the one part where they kind of teased him leaving his wife to be with one of his students, which is disgusting. They never, ever, ever should have done that. I wish they would have consulted a teacher before they put that in there. That is disgusting. But so there's this. So Mr. Holland he's a band director, and he didn't really want to teach. He wanted to write music, and it was just life caught up with him, and he just was never able to really write the music that he wanted to write because he was teaching. And so he's introduced to this one student who acts in a play, and she's got a nice voice, and she's going places. And it comes time for her to go to make a decision on what she's going to do with her life, and she wants to go to Broadway. And she asks Mr. Holland, say, hey, why don't you leave your wife and kid and come with me? And sadly, they gave us the insinuation that he actually thought about it, but he did not. But anyways, the way I would have rewritten that, rewritten that is that, when she asked him to come with me, well, first I wouldn't have really had that part in there. I would have had something like she's struggling with doubt, and she's got some anxiety about leaving home. That's the angle that I would have gone with. And then, Mr. Holland would have told her that, hey, you remember everything that I taught you? Take that with you. And that represents, wherever you go, I'm going to be with you because of the teaching that I taught you. That all of that is going to be with you, and you're going to use that, and you're going to be a success. And see, that's what it looks like when you're inspiring a follower instead of a worker. It's so deep. It's so really, it's so magical, because you're leaning into the fact that the students, they have their own decisions to make, and they gotta make them. They gotta analyze it, and they gotta process it and make the right decision. They have what they need because they have you as their leader. They have you as their leader. They have what they need to make a great decision. And I want to stress this, that when we talk about you inspiring followers in the classroom, your students following you to a place that they haven't seen yet, but it's a wonderful picture that you've painted, and they've got to make the right decisions in order to get there. When we talk about that, obviously, likability is a huge factor, right? It's a huge factor. That's why every teacher understands the importance of relationships. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I've met some teachers, I've worked with some teachers who, yeah, they've heard it, but they don't necessarily act on it. And so it's not a bad idea for me to throw that out there and just remind you that likability, it matters. But also, you need to be your genuine, authentic self. Don't try to be like anybody else. You've got to be you, because if you're coming off as fake or phony, it's just not going to work, and you're not going to make that connection with the students, and the students, it's going to be hard to inspire them to follow you. So I want to give you three tips to inspire followers in your classroom. But before we do that, birdlingscom, I want to show you this, share this with you. Birdlingscom. This is a one-stop shop for all things education news, the latest and trending education news, all in one place. Birdlingscom. Please make this a part of your daily habit. Check this site out. As you can see, the top story we have on there is 40% of Colorado teachers are considering quitting after pandemic school year, survey finds. And that is that's a rather large number. So that's a story that you can follow. And as we scroll down, you see other top stories of the day that we have here. So once again, I put this together for you, those in education, teachers. This is a place to stay informed on what's going on in the world of education, see top news that matters to you. So once again, I encourage you to make that a daily habit, to go to that site and check it out to stay informed. Again, birdlings.com. So now I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to inspire followers, not workers, in the classroom. Number 1 is emphasize decisions. Emphasize decisions. Remember, I shared with you that I told my students, hey, you can do anything you want to do in this classroom as long as it doesn't cause a problem. And then I would just throw those little things out there. It's almost kind of like I was planting seeds. I was constantly planting seeds of wisdom so that they had an idea of which way they should go, what kind of decision they should make. So I encourage you to adopt that language in your classroom, where you're always talking about decisions, where you're always encouraging students to analyze, okay, you made that decision. What happened as a result? What do you think you should have done as a result of that? Why do you think you got such a low grade? Or, hey, what do you expect to get on this next test as a result of some of the things that you've done? Just constantly get them thinking and reflecting on the decisions that they're making. And then another thing I want to say about that is lean into the truth. The students, they make their own decisions. And when you are accepting of that, yeah, it could get a little messy at times. It can get a little chaotic at times. That's what students do. But when you really lean into it, the fact that they make their own decisions, I think that, I found that they really appreciate that. They really appreciate that, treating them as, as independent thinkers. And over on the vision chaser side of what I do, I made a video that talked about how to recover from bad decisions, because I think what happens a lot of times is students, they get down on themselves because they've made bad decisions. But, always when we talk about decisions, you want to make sure, because remember, one of the things that you as a leader, you need to give to your students is hope. And so in this video, I talked about how, it is possible to recover from bad decisions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share that with you in the newsletter. In the newsletter, you'll find the show notes for this podcast. And if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, all you would need to do is go to marvinbyrd.com, and there it is right there. There's a tab called newsletter. And so when you click on that, there will be a form that pops up, and then you will be able to sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get all of the links and different things that I reference in the podcast. And that is not popping up right now. But anyways, you get the point. That's birdlings.com/newsletter. And hopefully your internet is faster than mine is at the moment. So that's number 1, emphasize decisions. You got to make decisions, and hopefully they're good decisions. And number two is this. And this can be a challenge. This can be a challenge, but it's important. Meet with students frequently to discuss progress. Meet with students frequently to discuss progress. Now, one of the things I did as a teacher is I had a student desk next to my desk, because that's how important it was to me to catch up with students and meet with them, talk with them, look at data, and or sometimes, hey, how's your weekend? What are you doing? What's going on? So that was really important to me. And success doesn't just happen. Success, it doesn't just happen. And so there's some students need to understand that, you have to plan for success. You have to have the ability to problem solve. You just can't hope that you get a good grade on the test. There's certain things that you have to do. And I remember when I was younger, I bought into that. If I just close my eyes and dream it and wish for it, then it's just gonna happen, because in my mind I was such a dreamer. In my mind it was so true. It was so true that I had, a huge house, nice cars. I didn't really think about too much of the work. And even going back to college, when I majored in computer science, I just thought about, this is what I want to do. I didn't think about the work that had to go into it. And that's why I got kicked out of college. So these meetings, they can be informal, and they can be quick. I would encourage you, if you have a tough time keeping up of who you met with, you can just keep a log, and maybe even keep a schedule of when you plan to meet with these students. And again, it can be just a quick 60-second check-in, where you're talking about their progress. You're talking about the decisions that they made. You're talking about their expectations. And that's the other thing too. When you get to talk to them about their expectations, you can compare their expectations to their effort. And sometimes people need to they need to hear their expectations. They need to hear themselves state their expectations, and they need to hear themselves state, what kind of effort that they're putting in. And like, I've been there many, many, many times when students expectations, effort, and then on their face they're like, did I just say that? Because that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, do that. So yeah, number two, meet with students. And the other thing that this does too, what makes this really special is that it shows that you care. It shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you care enough to treat them as an individual. And I've had it throughout my years, like, yeah, I've worked with students, and man, it didn't really feel to me like we got very far. But like, they really, the students, they would come back, and they would say, man, I missed your class. And I would scratch my head and just wonder why. But like, now I know that they appreciated the time that I poured into them. And so when you do that, you're developing that connection with your students, whether you notice it or not. All right, so that's number two. Number one, emphasize decisions. Two, meet with students frequently. And then number three is this. Praise effort. Praise effort. Now, what you're doing here is you're helping students to get off that infatuation with the grade. Now, for sure, for some students, it's all about the grade, and they're willing to put in the work. They got to have a 4.0. It's got to be a 4.0. It's got to be that. It's got to be that. Yeah. And then you have the students who are like, I got to get my mom off my back. I got to get this grade up. I got to get this grade. I got to do this. There are non-graded things that students can do to get their grade up. Once again, there are things that students can do that don't necessarily earn them a grade, but they're significant. And so many students struggle with this. And so what you have to do is you have to spotlight those things. And yeah, I know sometimes it's going to feel like, man, this is not working. It's unsuccessful, but it's the right thing to do, because remember, we talked about success doesn't just happen. You got to make it happen. So the things that students do that, that don't necessarily get them a grade, but they're good decisions, such as reflection, such as coming to class on time, asking questions. Hey, thanks for spending 7 minutes studying those notes. That's a really big deal. I appreciate you. Keep up that good work. And see, here's the thing. When you go over the top and you praise them specifically for those things, for doing those things, remember, your praise needs to be specific. It can't be generic. But when you praise them, that makes them feel good. And they want to have that feeling again. Let's remember, we're talking about inspiring followers, not workers. You cannot make them do it. You can't make them do it. Do not burn yourself out by even thinking that you can make students make the right decision. You're going to burn yourself out if you do that. You got to emphasize decision making, use that language in your class, and then also praise the effort in those areas of, when they make adjustments, when they reflect, when they actually think about what they're doing. That's where the money is. So you got to try to, what you're doing is you're refocusing them. You're training them to think differently, because the outcome that they want, those expectations, they're not going to just come. They've got to do something different. Now, another thing about your praise, I want to show you this. You may be familiar with the 5 love languages, and I definitely became familiar with that book during my first year of marriage. 5 love languages. Well, what another author did was he took the 5 love languages and he kind of crafted a languages of appreciation for the workplace. So I'm sharing this with you. And again, I'm going to add this to the show notes, and that if you want to subscribe to the newsletter to get the show notes, again, that's marvinbyrd.com/newsletter. So this quiz, it's a brief quiz. It's a brief quiz. Okay. So the different languages of appreciation are words of affirmation, quality time, tangible gifts, and acts of service. And these are the ways in which you can express that appreciation and praise for effort in these in these areas. And the thing about this, and also it shows you what you can avoid when you're praising these students based on their preference. Now, what this does is it makes sure, it ensures that your praise it packs the most punch, right? That you're not treating you're not treating your students as one size fits all. So I'm going to share that with you as well. And I encourage you to take time to administer this to your students so that you can give them the praise and appreciation that means the most to them. All right, so let's sum it up. 3 tips to inspire followers, not workers in the classroom. Number 1 is emphasize decisions. Emphasize student decision making. Equip them with the skills to make more good decisions than bad decisions, because that's what life is about. Number 2, meet with students frequently to discuss their progress. It's difficult, but you can do it. It doesn't have to be anything formal, and it can be just a quick check-in. Very challenging, but it can be done, and it is necessary. And then number 3, praise effort, especially in those areas that don't necessarily earn them a grade. And one way that you can really pinpoint your praise and make sure that it packs the most power is through understanding their language of appreciation. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Please, 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 please subscribe. For those of you who prefer to watch, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would really appreciate that. And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to the show. So until we meet again, please don't forget that teachers are leaders.